I used to believe that love, no matter how fragile or complicated, could hold two people together, even in the darkest storms. But now, as I stand here, looking back at everything that happened, I'm not sure if love is something that saves you or something that quietly destroys you from within. My name is Sophia, and this is the story of how everything in my life changed. How I lost myself loving someone who was never really mine to keep. It all began in the small postal town of Rosewood, where the sunsets always painted the sky in shades of amber and lilac, and the ocean winds carried secrets no one dared to speak aloud. I lived a simple life with my mother Elena and my younger brother Liam, after my father passed away when I was 13. My mother always told me to stay away from distractions, to focus on my dreams. But life had its own way of leading me into chaos when I met him, Adrian Hayes. Adrian was the kind of person who could walk into a room and the air would subtly shift. People would fall silent, drawn in by his quiet confidence and magnetic charm. He had deep brown eyes that looked like they were hiding 1,000 untold stories, and a smile that made you believe you were the only person that mattered. I met him during a charity event at the old community center. I was helping my friend Chloe arrange flowers near the entrance when Adrian walked in with his best friend Ethan Blackwood. Chloe nudged me, whispering, "That's Adrian, the guy I was telling you about." I looked up, and for a moment, everything around me blurred. He was laughing at something Ethan said, and when our eyes met, he smiled. Not a polite smile, but one that felt real, warm, like sunlight touching cold skin. I looked away quickly, pretending to adjust the flowers, my cheeks burning. I didn't expect him to walk straight toward me, but he did. "These look beautiful," he said, pointing at the flowers, but his eyes were fixed on me. I mumbled a shy thank you, barely able to speak, and he chuckled softly. That was the moment everything started. Days turned into weeks, and somehow, we kept meeting. At the coffee shop on Birch Street where I studied after school, at the pier where he liked to sit and sketch the ocean, at Chloe's family bookstore where he'd browse old poetry books. At first, our conversations were small, simple hellos and awkward smiles, but soon they grew into long talks under moonlight, soft laughter, and secrets shared beneath the stars. I learned he loved art, that he wanted to travel the world and capture it on canvas. He said I was different, that being with me felt calm, like the world finally made sense, and I, foolishly, hopelessly, fell for him. But life, as I would learn, never lets happiness come without a price. There was another girl, Madeline Carter. She was beautiful in a way that turned heads effortlessly, with long, dark hair, bold red lips, and a confidence that made people admire her instantly. She and Adrian had known each other since childhood. Their families were close, and everyone assumed they would end up together. What I didn't know at first was that Madeline loved Adrian, deeply, possessively, and she wasn't willing to let anyone come between them, not even me. At first, I thought I was just imagining the way Madeline looked at me, sharp, calculating, like she was trying to figure out why Adrian kept choosing to spend time with me instead of her. But soon, the subtle looks turned into cold words and quiet threats. One afternoon, I found her waiting for me near the old stone bridge by the river. "Stay away from Adrian," she said, her voice soft but dangerous. "He belongs with me. Don't make this harder than it has to be." My heart pounded, but I forced myself to stay calm. "He's not something you own," I replied quietly, and the darkness in her eyes told me that this was just the beginning. I didn't tell Adrian about it because I didn't want to create drama or seem insecure. Maybe that was my first mistake, keeping things to myself, thinking I could handle everything alone. But how could I have known how far she would go? Days passed, and my bond with Adrian only grew stronger. He would pick me up after my evening shifts at the cafe, bringing warm coffee for me even when he was exhausted. We'd sit in his car, listening to the rain tap softly against the windows, talking about our dreams. One night, with his hand gently brushing mine, he whispered, "Sophia, I think I'm falling in love with you." My breath caught, tears stinging my eyes as I smiled and admitted, "I think I'm falling too." Those were the happiest days of my life. Quiet, soft, like a dream I never wanted to wake from. But dreams, no matter how beautiful, don't last forever. Soon, whispers began to spread around town. People said I was trying to break Adrian and Madeline apart, that I was manipulating him. I could feel the judgmental stares at the cafe, at school, even at the market where my mother worked. I tried to ignore it all, but the pressure kept building. Then, one evening, Adrian invited me to his family's summer house by the lake, a peaceful place surrounded by tall pines and the gentle sound of flowing water. He had planned a small surprise: candles, sketchbooks, and a little note that said, "For the girl who makes my world feel like home." I remember laughing, my heart full as he asked me to close my eyes. He was about to give me a necklace, a silver locket with my initials, but before he could, we heard footsteps. Madeline stood at the doorway, eyes filled with fury and hurt. "So it's true," she said, voice trembling. "You chose her." Adrian stepped forward, calm but firm. "Madeline, I never promised you anything. You're my friend, but I love Sophia." I will never forget the look on her face, as if her entire world shattered in that moment. She turned to me, tears mixing with anger. "You'll regret this," she whispered before storming out. That night, I lay awake next to Adrian, wondering what consequences those words would bring. I didn't have to wait long to find out. The next morning, news spread that Madeline had left town without telling anyone. Her parents were devastated, and her friends blamed me. They said I had taken everything from her. The guilt weighed heavily on my chest, but Adrian stayed by my side, holding my hand and telling me everything would be okay. But things only grew worse. A week later, someone vandalized my locker at school, writing cruel words about me and Adrian. Someone else spread rumors that I was using him for money, that I was pretending to be innocent. My mother noticed the way I cried silently at night, the dark circles under my eyes. But I told her I was just tired from work. I didn't want her to worry. I kept telling myself that love was worth the pain, that Adrian and I could survive anything as long as we stayed together. But the world doesn't always break you with thunder and storms. Sometimes it breaks you with silence, with small cracks that slowly tear everything apart. Adrian began to change too, not because he stopped loving me, but because the pressure from his family, from society, from whispers in every corner slowly broke him down. His parents, especially his mother Victoria Hayes, began insisting he focus on his future, his family business, his reputation. "Sophia isn't right for you," she told him when she thought I couldn't hear. "She's from a different world. She'll only hold you back." Adrian argued with them constantly. But I could see it was tearing him apart. I wanted to be strong, to tell him we could fight through it. But fear had already started planting seeds inside me. Fear of losing him. Fear of being the reason his life fell apart. And then, everything collapsed one quiet evening when he showed up at my door, eyes red, shoulders heavy. "Sophia," he whispered, voice broken, "I love you, but I can't do this anymore. My family, my future, everything is falling apart. I don't want to hurt you, but I don't know how to fix this." His words felt like knives carving into my chest. I wanted to scream, to hold him, to beg him to stay, but all I could do was nod, tears streaming silently down my face. "If letting me go gives you peace," I managed to say, "then go." And just like that, he left. The days that followed were empty, cold, colorless. I stopped going to the cafe, stopped answering Chloe's messages, stopped looking at the ocean. I felt like a ghost wandering through my own life. But pain changes you. It either destroys you completely or forces you to rebuild yourself from the ashes. Slowly, I began to find strength again. I focused on my passion for writing, pouring every broken piece of my heart onto paper. I applied for a scholarship at a university far from Rosewood, and to my surprise, I got accepted. On the day I was packing my bags, Adrian came to see me one last time. He looked tired, older somehow, but his eyes still held that same warmth. "Sophia," he said softly, "I never stopped loving you. I just didn't know how to fight for us." I smiled sadly, placing a trembling hand over his. "Some love stories aren't meant to last forever, Adrian. Some are just meant to teach us how to feel." He didn't try to stop me. He just pulled me into his arms and held me like he was trying to memorize the shape of my soul. And then he whispered the words I'll never forget, the same ending you wanted to keep. Maybe in another lifetime, when the stars align differently, I'll find you and love you the way you deserved in this one. I left without looking back, tears blurring my vision as the town faded behind me. Now, as I sit on this train with my suitcase beside me and a new life waiting ahead, I realize love doesn't always mean staying. It sometimes means walking away, so both hearts can heal. I don't hate Adrian, and I don't blame Madeline. Life isn't about villains and heroes. It's about people who are hurting, trying to protect themselves the only way they know how. And maybe one day, when I stand somewhere far from Rosewood, with the sun warming my face and peace finally blooming in my heart, I'll remember him, not with pain, but with a quiet kind of gratefulness. Because even though he broke me, he also taught me how deeply I could love. And maybe, just maybe, that is enough.